The mysterious mountain shop. Amanda woke at 3 in the morning from her own scream. The dream felt so real she was drowning in papers. They grew into walls around her, suffocating her, and she couldn't escape. When she opened her eyes, she realized she was lying on the floor next to the bed, the pillow clutched in her hands so tightly her nails dug into the fabric. This was the sign. The final one. Over the last 6 months, her life had turned into a mechanical loop. Working at the insurance company meant hearing about other people's misfortunes every day, filling out forms, and realizing you were becoming a form yourself. Home was 4 walls where she ate cold food from containers and stared at her phone until her eyes watered. And then work again. The doctor said, burnout. You need rest. But how do you rest with a car loan for a car she barely drove? When her mom called every day asking when she would finally settle down. When her friends got married one by one, had children, while she sat in an empty apartment thinking, what's wrong with me? The next morning David called. Her university friend who had somehow kept his vivacity and lightness. The kind of person who could call at 2 a.m. and say, let's go to the sea. Right now. Amanda, I found a place, he said. Mountains. A lost village. No internet at all. You coming? She wanted to refuse, but instead heard her own voice. When? Tomorrow, she agreed. Because if not now, then never. The road to the mountains took 7 hours. First the highway, then a narrow serpentine road where David's car creaked on every turn, and outside the window views opened up that took her breath away. Valleys shrouded in mist. Ridges rising to the sky like walls of an ancient fortress. Rivers sparkling like silver threads below. Amanda rolled down the window and breathed in. The air was different, clean, cold, with a taste of pine and wild grass. For the first time in months, her chest expanded, as if an invisible press had been lifted. It's good here, she said quietly. David smiled. You haven't seen the village itself yet. The village was tiny, 20 houses at most. Old wooden log houses with sagging roofs, fences overgrown with moss. The only street was paved with ancient cobblestones, with sprawling linden trees along the edges. On the central square, if you could call it that, stood a shop with a sign Honey Herbs, next to a guest house with 4 rooms and a tiny church with peeling paint. The silence here wasn't just an absence of sound. It was dense, tangible, as if time itself had slowed down and decided to stop right here. This is exactly what I needed, Amanda exhaled. They stopped at the guest house, unloaded their bags. The owner, a plump woman in her 60s with a kind face, showed them to their rooms and said dinner would be at 7. After the journey, they wanted to stretch their legs and decided to take a walk. That's when Amanda saw it. The shop stood at the very edge of the village, almost at the forest. It stood out from the other houses not in size, but in something else. As if a darker, thicker shadow had gathered here. The facade was made of blackened wood, the windows small, narrow, with shutters that seemed not to have been opened for years. Above the door hung a sign, the letters barely legible. Artifacts lore. What is this place? Amanda murmured, stopping. David shrugged. No idea. Want to go in? Something inside her twitched. Not curiosity, something deeper. As if an invisible hand pushed her toward that door. Yes, she said. Let's go in. The door opened silently, though it looked heavy. Inside it smelled of old paper, wax, and something else, herbal, smoky, ancient. The shop was larger than it seemed from outside. Shelves disappeared into the semi-darkness crowded with objects. Books with leather bindings, wooden masks with empty eye sockets, boxes with intricate patterns, glass vials with dried plants, stone figurines, metal plates with etched symbols. Light fell dimly from a few candles and one lamp under the ceiling. The shadows moved strangely as if living their own life. "Welcome," the voice came from nowhere. Amanda flinched. A man emerged from behind a shelf. Elderly, in his 70s, maybe older. Stooped in a dark knitted sweater and old trousers. His face was lined with wrinkles, but his eyes were alive, perceptive, as if they saw more than they showed. "Sorry, didn't mean to startle you," he said with a slight smile. "I'm the owner. Call me simply Henry." "We're just looking," David said quickly. Look, the old man nodded. "But no, these things are rarely found here by accident. Usually, the items choose themselves." Amanda walked along the shelves, examining the strange objects. Her fingers glided over book spines, box edges. She didn't know what she was looking for. But she was looking. And then she saw it. The locket. It lay on a velvet cushion in the corner of a display case, almost unnoticeable. Round, the size of a coin, made of dark metal, bronze or copper, covered with the patina of time. In the center was a carved symbol, a sun with sharp, uneven rays that looked more like claws or tongues of flame. Amanda reached out and took it. At that same moment, a wave passed through her fingers, not electricity, not heat, something else. As if the locket recognized her. "An interesting choice," Henry said, appearing beside her so quietly she flinched again. "This locket is very old. No one knows how old. But it has a story." "What story?" Amanda asked, not taking her eyes off the symbol. The old man paused as if weighing his words. "They say it belonged to a woman who lived here long ago. She was a healer. Or a witch. Depends on who you asked. She could see people's fears, the deepest ones, those they hid even from themselves. And this locket helped her. But it did more than just show fears. It materialized them." Amanda looked at him. "Materialized?" "Gave them form. Voice. Presence." Henry smiled, but the smile was sad. "People don't fear monsters. They fear loneliness, oblivion, meaninglessness. This locket makes fear real. So a person can face it." David snorted. "Sounds like a tourist tale." "Perhaps," the old man agreed. "But I did warn you." Amanda clenched the locket in her palm. Its weight was strange, as if it weighed more than it showed. "How much?" "For you, nothing," said Henry. "If it chose you, then you need it. And paying for what is already yours is pointless." She wanted to object, but something in his voice made her silent. She nodded, hung the locket around her neck, and walked out of the shop. On the threshold, she turned back. Henry stood in the semi-darkness, and his eyes glowed with a strange light. "Don't be afraid to look," he said. "Fear is stronger when you don't see it." That evening they settled in a small house on the slope that the guesthouse owner rented separately. 2 floors, wooden walls, a fireplace, and huge windows with a view of the valley. The perfect place to rest. But Amanda couldn't rest. The locket lay heavily on her neck. Not physically, it weighed almost nothing. But its presence was felt, as if someone had placed a hand on her chest and not removed it. She examined the symbol in the lamplight. Sharp rays. Dark metal. Something hypnotic, magnetic about it. She couldn't look away. "Amanda coming to bed?" David asked from the next room. Soon, she replied. When she lay down, she left the locket on. For some reason, she didn't want to take it off. She closed her eyes and fell into sleep. First came the whisper, barely audible like wind in leaves. But there were no words, only rhythm. Repetitive, monotonous, insistent. Then the voice became clearer. It called her name. Amanda. She opened her eyes. The room was dark, only moonlight through the window. The silence was absolute. But the whisper continued somewhere nearby, behind the wall, under the floor, inside her head. Amanda. Look. She sat up in bed. Her heart beat fast, her hands trembled. The locket on her chest was hot. David. She called softly. Silence. She got up, walked barefoot to the window. The forest below was black, impenetrable. But something moved between the trees. A shadow. A human figure. It stood motionless, watching the house. Amanda froze. Everything inside clenched into an icy ball. The figure took a step forward. Then another. Slowly, very slowly, it walked toward the house. Amanda recoiled from the window, gasping. Grabbed her phone, the screen flashed and died. The battery was dead. Footsteps. They were clearly audible now. Slow, heavy. Someone was climbing the porch steps. Amanda ran out of the room, burst into David's. David, get up. There's someone out there. He jumped up, dazed from sleep. What? Out there. Outside. Someone's coming. They froze, listening. Silence. Absolute. David went to the window, looked out. Amanda, there's no one. But I saw. Maybe a dream. She touched the locket on her chest. It was still warm. No, she whispered. It was real. The next morning she woke up exhausted, as if she hadn't slept at all. The locket's chain was twisted, though she remembered straightening it carefully before bed. At breakfast David asked it. You okay? You look pale. Didn't sleep well. Maybe we should go back. No, she cut him off. I just got here. They went out to walk around the village again. Amanda noticed people looking at her strangely. Not hostile, but worried, as if they had seen something they didn't want to talk about. They approached the shop. The door was closed. The windows dark, empty. Amanda knocked. No answer. She tried the handle, locked. Maybe it's their day off. David suggested. Then she noticed it. On the wall of the house next to the door was a faded drawing. Almost invisible, worn away by time and rain. The same symbol as on the locket. The sun with sharp rays. Cold crept up her spine. Let's get out of here, she whispered. That evening it all repeated. The whisper. The shadow in the forest. Footsteps on the porch. But now it was worse. Amanda went out onto the porch. She couldn't sit inside anymore. She needed air, cold, something real. And then she saw her. The figure stood at the edge of the clearing between the trees. A woman. Long hair, a dark dress. Her face hidden in shadow. She didn't move. Just stood and watched. The locket on Amanda's chest burned with heat, as if glowing red hot. She grabbed it, gasping from the pain. And then the woman spoke. Her voice was quiet but piercing, like a needle going straight into the brain. You're afraid of being alone. Afraid no one will ever truly love you. Afraid your life is empty, meaningless, and you'll die without leaving a trace. Amanda froze. The words were like a blow. Because they were true. The figure took a step forward. You're afraid of yourself. Afraid to look inside and see the emptiness. Enough, Amanda whispered. But I'm here. I am your fear. I am you. Amanda screamed and rushed back into the house, slamming the door. She sat on the floor, trembling all over. The locket burned her skin, but she couldn't remove it. Her fingers wouldn't obey. David came running at the noise. Amanda, what happened? She couldn't answer. Just cried, covering her face with her hands. Morning brought clarity. Cold, harsh clarity. Amanda sat on the porch, looked at the mountains and understood. The locket wasn't a curse. It was a mirror. It showed her what she had been running from her whole life. The fear of loneliness. The fear of meaninglessness. The fear that she wasn't good enough, important enough, alive enough. This fear had been eating her from the inside for years. She hid it under work, routine, excuses. But it never went away. It just waited, and the locket gave it a voice. She stood up, walked to the edge of the cliff, and took off the locket. Looked at it one last time. The symbol looked back. Dark, ancient, relentless. I won't be afraid anymore, she said aloud. I won't live in this fear. My life is mine, and only I decide what to do with it. She swung her arm and threw the locket into the chasm. It flew glinting in the sun and disappeared among the rocks. Her chest felt light. Quiet, peaceful. For the first time in many years. 2 days later, they left the village. Amanda didn't go near that shop again. Didn't look for Henry. She knew there were no answers there. Because all the answers had always been inside her. Back home, she quit her job. Found a new one, simpler but more interesting. Stopped answering calls that drained her energy. Started seeing a therapist. Learned to say no. Learned to be alone, not from loneliness, but by choice. The fears didn't disappear. But they stopped controlling her. Sometimes at night she still heard that whisper. But now she would just open her eyes, take a deep breath, and say, I see you, but you are not my master. And the fear would retreat. Because the greatest strength isn't in not being afraid. It's in looking fear in the face and continuing to live.